Hey everyone, welcome to 1 Hour a Day, the channel where I spend just 1 hour each day learning a challenging skill. I'm Justin, and in this series, I'm going to be learning how to handstand. My strategy going into this was to just start doing handstands right away. A lot of the advice online was talking about progressing to each step, doing handstands against the wall, taking your feet off slowly, all that sort of stuff, which I'm sure is great advice for most people trying to learn it. But for me, I'm trying to push the limits on how fast we can learn something, and I just had to start doing it because if I got really good at doing handstands against the wall, right, and then maybe I can take my feet off slowly and then, maybe hold it like that, that's great. But then when I try to do it, an actual handstand, kicking up off the ground into it, there's a really good chance that I'm not going to be able to do it, right? Practice doesn't necessarily translate perfectly to when you're executing the skill, and there was just a really good chance that my kick up wouldn't have gotten any practice doing that wall technique, and then I would have just fallen over each time. So for me, I just wanted to start doing it right away and to get as much practice as possible falling over, because that to me was going to be the fastest way to learn it. So on day one, I jumped right in. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just sort of, I guess, imitating how you'd see gymnasts do handstands, right? Where they do their whole technique, they put their hands up and they kick right into it. And so I was just doing that over and over again, and I was falling basically immediately every time, either forwards or back. And I know a lot of people, when they think of handstands, they get worried about falling backwards, right? Oh, I'm going to land right on my back. And I was a little afraid of that, but I figured as long as I did it controlled, that wouldn't really happen. And I mean, I was right. My body sort of instinctively knew how to fall, which sounds weird, but as I was leaning or tipping backwards, my body just sort of like twisted and landed on my feet on its own. I think it's called a pirouette. I don't know, but that's sort of the technique, right? I know some people say you can land into a bridge. Uh, I don't have the flexibility nor the confidence to do that. So for me, I mean, it worked out well. And in that first day, I definitely didn't hold a handstand by any means. There was a couple of times where maybe for 1 or 1.5 seconds, you know, I wasn't balancing. I was just sort of not falling yet, if that makes sense. And so yeah, about a second and a half on the first day, but I had to stop pretty early because I was getting a really bad headache. Um, but that went away with time, over the course of a few days. And something I found interesting was I sort of figured that it would be easier throughout the first day after, half an hour practice, 45 minutes of practice. I would get better at them. But I found I was actually best towards the start. Reason being because my wrists and hands and all of that, they'd get really sore, and it was more strenuous than I anticipated, which I probably should have anticipated. I mean, you're holding your whole weight up through your shoulders and arms, so it's obviously going to be strenuous. And I found later in the challenge that that sort of diminished. I guess I was building strength in my wrists, so that pain, as long as I took adequate breaks every few minutes, or I'd try a few times and then take a break for a few minutes. Um, the pain in my wrists and all that was definitely manageable to the point where I didn't feel that it was hindering my progress. So aside from the slight fear of falling backwards I had at the start of this challenge, the only real concern I had was injury, and not from falling, but injury of my wrists or arms or shoulders, joints, anything like that. Obviously, when you're doing something strenuous like this every day in a row, there's a real possibility for injury, and I didn't want this challenge to get cut short because I got hurt. So the solution I came up with is that I would do the handstands every other day. And now I know you're saying, Justin, this is 1 hour a day. You can't just skip a day. And you're right. I have to practice 1 hour each day. That's the goal. And so the workaround I found was to mentally visualize doing the handstand on each other day that I wasn't practicing it. I learned in the blindfold chess series that our visualization can get really sharp as we practice it. And there have been a ton of studies that have shown that visualizing practicing a skill, whether it's free throws in basketball, playing piano, even lifting weights, Olympic athletes, everything. Just so many studies have shown that it's so effective for getting better at a skill. For example, there was this one study done out of the University of Chicago in 1996, and they got a bunch of random students and they asked them to do free throws just as a baseline, and then they separated these group of students into 3 groups. The first one practiced free throws for half an hour every day. They got to the gym and they just practiced over and over again. And the second group just imagined they visualized practicing, right? So they'd go to the gym and they'd sit there and they'd just think about singing free throws, right? Like really think about it from your perspective, like hearing the ball. Hearing the ball go in, seeing your arm, seeing the swish, hear the crowd, all of that. Just intensely visualize it. And the third group, they just didn't do anything, right? They didn't practice, they didn't imagine practicing. And after 30 days, they got them back to practice again, to record, the improvement from the start. The third group who didn't practice or imagine practicing, they didn't improve, right? Obviously. The first group who physically practiced improved by 24%. And the second group that just visualized practicing improved by 23%. So, that's wild, right? That's basically the same improvement just by imagining it. So, it's a really powerful tool to help you get better at something. And the key is that you have to really envision every aspect of it as clearly as you can, right? You gotta feel the ground. If you're doing handstands, you gotta feel the ground, feel how your body feels, your muscles, all of that. I went so as far to try to imagine the smell of the morning. I gotta do it in the morning, right? So I'm out there just thinking about smelling the morning air and all of that. And I got so deep into the visualizations that I couldn't even do handstands properly, right? Because my body on the first day was so used to just falling over. So I get so into this visualization on the second day, and I'm thinking about it, eyes closed, and my body and my head, it just couldn't hold a handstand, right? Like gravity still worked to my brain, and I was just imagining falling over and over. And I was like, okay, like I'm just gonna start getting worse at this if I keep visualizing falling. So it was really a struggle, but I made myself, picture doing it. Like it was honestly hard to visualize holding a handstand, but I forced myself to do it, and then I sort of got better at it from there. So I don't know, I just found that really funny that I couldn't even do it in my head. So that's it for the first 2 weeks, the first 12 days of learning to do this challenge. If you know how to handstand, I would love to hear from you below if you have any tips for me, or if you have any ideas for next video or for a future series, a new topic for me to learn. I would also love to hear from you. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Later.